Hey guys, welcome back to Olson's Garage. So this is the third part of our KX125 build, which I'm going to now dub the KX1 Deuce Nickel project. So you guys saw in the last couple of videos that we had a bunch of main problems down here with our shifter, spring, and some other stuff going down in here. And then in the second video, you guys saw everything else that ended up being wrong with this bike. So we got a bunch of parts. We got all of these parts, all these OEM parts from Partzilla, which has easily probably the best and most in stock parts for these a little bit older bikes. So I got the spring that centers the shifter, and then they got the bushing, clutch bolts, and then these are just some random seals of things that were leaking and looked kind of crappy. I got this from Amazon. This is just a normal gasket kit, but it comes with a lot of parts, and I think it comes with a water pump rebuild kit too. So this is actually super sweet. Yeah, water pump gasket, bearing, Kawasaki, KX125, 94 to 02 with this one. This entire box is from Rocky Mountain ATV, and this is going to be the large majority of our aftermarket things, and this is going to be a little bit down the line, but all the stuff in this box will let us ride this thing, fingers crossed, this weekend. And then the main piece right here, the biggest setback of our build, this clutch cover. As I showed you guys last time, this clutch cover, side cover was cracked. I was trying to maybe grind it out and I was gonna weld it. Well, I did find this one for, God, what did I pay for this? I found this on eBay and I think I paid $36 for this. It does have some epoxy stuff going on here, but I was kind of looking around. It doesn't seem to be cracked at all, and it's on the top side, so I'm not real worried about it leaking. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not perfect. It's gonna need to be cleaned up. It's a little nasty in here, but I think this will work, even though it's kind of on the gross side. Another thing we picked up from eBay for really cheap was this piece. They don't make this piece anymore, unfortunately. I tried to buy this from Partzilla. They had it. They said they were going to have it. I got an email a couple days later saying this is discontinued. No one makes it. No one can find it. So eBay was the option. So I got a new water pump cover, which I didn't really need, but it came with this elbow, which I did need. So now that we got all these parts, we're going to start cleaning them up, and we're going to start swapping stuff onto the bike. So hopefully this thing will run and shift by the end of tonight. So hopefully when we get all these parts and pieces cleaned up and rebuilt, we'll be able to slap them back on the bike and fingers crossed be able to ride the bike tonight or tomorrow night. So another really cool purchase that I made the other day was these Maxxis tires. I found these on Facebook Marketplace, not super far away, and I got these two almost brand new Maxxis tires. This one is a 190/19, so this will fit our rear tire, and then this is a 80/121, and these things are like brand new. So super stoked about that. This one still has the little dinghies on it. So I got those two tires for $50 is originally what I asked the guy. Well, then the guy said, oh, I have 4 more tires. Sorry, it's dark up here. But he sold me this Dunlop MX-11 sand tire, which I actually want to put on my other KX. Oh yeah, so there it is. So I got 3 regular knobbies and the sand tire, which I'm gonna swap onto my KX. I got all these tires for $70. So yeah, why not? Let's rip them. I feel like this was a pretty stellar deal. I mean, these have a little bit of wear in them, but man, those are going to be great. Because then we'll be able to get rid of this dry rotted tire up here and this fairly worn down tire back here. So pretty stoked about that. But let's get into cleaning this stuff up And let's, fingers crossed, try and make this thing run tonight. Stay tuned, guys. Solson's Garage. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is work on this water pump. So we're gonna start swapping pieces over from this side. But before we do that, I bought a rebuild kit. The rebuild kit is in the gasket kit, but so we're gonna be replacing the bearing and then the seals. So the way you put the seals in is the most important part about this entire thing. The most important seal in question is this seal right here, and you have to put it in just right. So here's the old seal, and here's the new seal. So this, I don't even know how to explain it. The side where it's harder to see the spring, that side goes in like this. Just like that. The side where you can see the spring easier goes towards the oil part, basically. So we'll press that in there real nice and gentle. It might even help to use a little bit of lube on the outside, so let's do that. Grab just a little bit of grease from over here. All right. Make sure we put that in just right. And then another thing that we can do too is use a socket as a seal driver. And then just very gently, we'll tap it down. Gotta go a little bit farther. Might need a little bit smaller size. 10's not gonna work. Let's try an 11. There we go. That ended up working. So we got that seal. Then in the kit, there is this thin seal. There's no spring in it or anything, but then this seal goes flat side. That one goes in just like that. And that one's designed to sit flush to the case. Perfect. So we got that one in there. On the back side then, there is the bearing. The bearing it doesn't matter which way you go in with it. Let's take all these old parts and throw them away. Couple seals, copper washers, actually, crush washers. So we got our bearing, we'll pop in here. And this shouldn't take a lot of force to get in there. But same thing, we'll end up using a socket to just drive it down that little bit. Use this flat side. And obviously make sure it still spins too. A little bit tricky with this one. All right, there we go. So obviously make sure it still spins. This one still spins, so we're in good shape there. I don't know if I'll be able to replace this bearing or not. I don't even know if that's the right size bearing. It is not. Now I wonder what this bearing's for even. Bearing. At least it's specific. All right. So we got that part in there. We're gonna grab our impact and a 10 millimeter. and we are going to take this apart. Actually, I might have had this apart already. Oh, maybe not. Oh, 8mm. Ten millimeter. Oh, 8mm. Here's my 8mm. That's gonna be kind of a pain in the butt. And there we go. And here's a dowel that fell out already. So be aware of that. Because them dowels love falling apart. Or falling out at least. So yeah, just like that, we take out this bolt. This unbolts from here. And then this slides out backside. As we can see, that looks pretty terrible in there. And someone used a bolt that was too long and tried to put it in the drain. So with this, we'll just inspect it quick. Everything seems to look fine. Take a little bit of brake clean, clean it off. We'll throw a little bit of grease on it when we go to slide it in. Another thing, you want to make sure that that shaft isn't grooved, so then it won't leak either. So we go. Pop the shaft through. Maybe we'll throw a little bit of lube in those seals too, just to make sure. Just go like that. Go in this way. Trying to get it worked in there. We'll pop it back out and push it this way. Do the same thing. Perfect. Never have enough rags out, you know? Okay, so we got that in. Now we take the impeller part and we bolt it down. It doesn't appear that there was ever any thread locker on here. So we're going to throw this back in. There's a washer on the back side, so be aware of that. Then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to push this up against here. Okay, so that's tight. Once we put all the gears and everything back on the bike, we'll actually be able to torque that a little better than what we just did. But yeah, it rubs a little bit. Maybe not. All right, so our water pump is in, and the gear's in, and it spins nice and good. So I'm really happy about this. Let's start taking apart the power valve stuff. So with the power valve, take it out. There's a nut right here. grab a wrench and loosen it quick. There's a nut here, and then there's a really tiny little JIS screw. Unfortunately, we still don't have any JIS screwdrivers, so we're gonna go in this Mac kit. So we'll grab this, pop this screw out. There we go. Got that screw out, and then we're gonna have to go in here, take these two Allens out. Probably a 3 or a 4, hey? A 3. Take those two out. And then the shaft will be able to slide out so that we can slide it in the new one. Hopefully. It looks to be caught on the seal or something. Let's put this back on. And we'll grab our pliers and pull this out. Okay. Interesting. I don't know why that's being such a pain in the butt. Let's try putting it in the vise and see if that makes any difference. Okay, so we did end up getting it out, which is awesome. Let's check in our kit and see if we don't potentially have a seal. Otherwise, that seal doesn't really look too bad. We might just reuse that. It doesn't appear that we have another seal. So we're going to reuse this. And basically the same thing. Just slide it back in. And it's still kind of a little bit of a pain in the butt. We're going to persuade it just a little bit. There we go. Let's see. Let's grab a pick. We'll just make sure that we're able to rotate it fairly easy. All right. Cool. So then we'll go and we'll install this back in here. All right, go and we'll install the shaft back on, and then we'll throw this nut on just for now. All right, so power valve installed, water pump installed. let's grab our power valve out of here. Or spring parts. So this goes in here. Oh, nope. I'm sorry. This goes like this. There we go. So then this rotates when this spins up faster. So those gears seem to be good in there. If anything, we'll grab just a little bit of lube. What do we even got for lube? Not a whole lot. I'll go with a little bit of this stuff. There we go. All right, so this part of it is done. So let's go to the bike side and we'll install some of these parts to make this thing better. Stay tuned. All right, so basically the biggest problem with this entire bike was quite literally just this part right here. This is why this thing wouldn't shift. So I showed you guys in the last video why this is the piece that we need. And then there is a bushing in here too. So if you end up with this scenario, make sure you get this little plastic bushing. I think it's labeled as technically a collar, but I'm gonna call it a bushing. So that goes in here, and then you, like, I mean, heck, quite simply, just install it. And a little screwdriver, because it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. So that goes in there, and this one needs to be pried down just a little bit. Oh, come on. No, really? There we go. Goodness. Alright. So basically what this does is it centers everything. I'll give you guys a closer view of what it's supposed to look like. So that is what it's supposed to look like. Goes in there and it keeps that shaft centered so it's not flopping down or flopping up or anything. And then this will give you a good, I guess, in gear, out of gear feeling. And it'll keep everything centered. And then this pushes against the case and keeps that shaft from moving back and forth at all, which was another reason why the spring kept on falling off and that just wouldn't go into gear at all. So the only other thing we have to do is we have to put this starter spring back in, which I don't know how much of a pain in the butt this is going to be, but we're going to throw that on, throw this side cover on, and keep on hammering away at this thing. All right, so believe it or not, that was actually really easy. Really what you do is you push it in, there's a little tab that sticks out, you put it behind the little plate that's bolted in there, push it in, turn it a little bit, and then you grab the spring and you rotate it down to this portion right here. There's a perfect spot where the spring hooks in, and that's it. So that was really easy. I was kind of surprised. I was a little scared to take it apart on Kyle's bike, so that's why I didn't do it. But it was really easy on this, so I guess I didn't really have a whole lot to be scared of. So next we gotta do all the basket stuff too. So we're gonna throw this basket on, get that thing torqued down, and take care of all that stuff. Just to confirm though, we're gonna grab our shifter and we're gonna go through some gears quick. Okay, so in reality, you don't wanna be screwing around with this too much, but because you don't want this stuff to fall apart because the case keeps everything in place. But basically what you do is, some of this stuff might need to be spinning for it to go in. So there's first gear, then there's neutral, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, come on,
Maybe you're in gear already. You just didn't have that nice click. 5th gear. Oh my goodness. I guess you're just gonna be a pain in the butt. Probably doesn't help that there's no oil in this thing, and there hasn't been in a while. So this thing might just shift kind of crappy during this demonstration. But basically, we're in 1st gear, and we're back in neutral.
We got this thing to shift, and now we're gonna put the clutch basket on, which we are going to shave down just a little bit. It is notched pretty bad, but a new basket is gonna put this thing like way over budget for now. So we're gonna clean that up a little bit. It's not the right thing to do. So if you take this tool and you put a more aggressive wheel on it, what you can do is you can clean up these grooves really, really nice. That's what we ended up doing with Kyle's bike, and that thing shifts and engages so much better. So we're gonna do that with the basket and install everything on here. All right, so we got this thing cleaned up and it turned out pretty good. Hopefully you guys can see kind of what we got going on in there. We grooved them, cut them all down with just a polishing wheel. We tried using the regular, I don't even know what to call them. These ones? Tried using these ones, the sandpaper ones. These were a little bit too aggressive and they were catching too quick. So if you use a coarse polishing wheel, that ends up working pretty much perfectly, and then you have a nice smooth finish on there too right away. So we're gonna grab parts, slap this thing together. All right, so obviously basket, make sure those bearings go in there and stay in there. Make sure to throw just a little bit of assembly lube on some of this stuff. Of course, it's gonna be a pain in the butt now. We'll take the bearings on the shaft first. Then we'll slide this over it. Make sure to lube up in there a little bit. And we'll get this thing to engage. And go all the way in. Come on. What is going on here? Oh, there we go. All right, so we got that in there. Be careful, there is a washer that goes behind here. Washer, inner basket. Oh wait, my bad. That's still not on all the way. What is getting caught up on this thing? That's being super annoying. I think we got that finally taken care of. My goodness, that took forever. All right. And then washer, inner basket, and then we got our washer with the splines and our nut. And we're gonna have to torque down this nut. That is a really important torque spec, so we'll make sure to torque this thing and then mark it. But I need to look up the torque spec because I don't remember. So the torque spec that I ended up finding was 72 foot-pounds. That's for a KX250. I couldn't find the KX125 numbers, but I'm going to use that same number because that seems right to me as far as the nut size and the spline size and everything. Get yourself one of these tools. If you don't have one, buy one. They're very, very cheap, and they're so helpful for doing this kind of stuff. because now I can torque this very easily. I don't even know what I have this thing set to right now. 5. Give it a minute. These snap-on, I'm a big snap-on fan, especially when it comes to their ratchets. Snap-on ratchets are just the cat's meow. But gotta get some better leverage on this thing. Alright. Perfect. Went a little bit over, but that's okay. And then just to make sure, I'll mark it just in case we come in here again, or for the next guy, you can see if this spun at all. All right, put that there. And then we're gonna grab our clutch. So we're gonna be reusing our old clutch just for now. I'm going to buy a Tusk competition clutch, but until then, we're gonna run this thing and see, bottom dollar, what can we make this thing work for? So I'm gonna put an assessment of how much we spent just to make the thing work, and then how much we spent to make the thing better, and then how much we're gonna spend to make this thing basically perfect. And then we're gonna ride this thing on Saturday, hopefully. Everything goes well. Which I'm super excited about because I've never driven a 125 before. Ridden a 125 before. And I'm hoping that it's just gonna be just like my KX, or my KX250, but just a little bit friendlier. And then we'll check out that new track too, which I'm also super excited to ride on some more, because when I was building that, I was extremely tired. We worked a lot of hours on that thing, and I think it's gonna be awesome. It already is awesome, who am I kidding? So, just like in the last video, this pressure plate does only go on one way. So just something to keep in mind. I did end up borrowing some Banshee springs just for this project. All right, perfect. We'll throw these springs in there. Ooh, these springs might not work. We may need to come up with a different solution for this then. We might be getting... Man, that sucks. I was really hoping these Banshee springs were gonna work, and they do not. So now we decide, do we steal parts off of our perfectly good running KX250 to make this thing run? Decisions. I also realized I forgot to put in the push rod and stuff, so that would have been super embarrassing too. Alright guys, totally kind of messed up on this one. Totally my bad. So I thought I was going to be able to get Yamaha Banshee springs to fit in there. They don't, so don't rely on that. I ended up just ordering a Tusk competition clutch kit. I'm going to throw it in here eventually anyway, but I figured might as well buy it because it comes with springs. So we're going to slap this on. We're going to throw 3 springs on for now, and then fingers crossed we get that clutch kit by Friday. If we don't, we're gonna rob parts off the KX250. So I got our push rod in here, and then I need the bearing to go on there as well. Our pilot bearing. So we'll put that on the end of the push rod, and then this goes over all of that. And then make sure it lines up and sits in there nice. We're gonna take our springs, all 3 springs that we have, slap these in here. Grab our brand new OEM bolts and tighten them down. And then these are 10 millimeters. Be careful when you're tightening these down. You don't want to over torque them. We're just going to give them one quick ugga-dugga. When we get the other one, we'll actually torque this down the right way. Then we'll keep this one in here just so that we know where it is. Perfect. All right, cool. So we got those. So let's try pulling on our clutch. Never mind. That was a terrible idea. We won't do that again. So now we're gonna try pulling on our clutch. All right, cool. So we have engagement. And I just realized I forgot to buy grips too. Son of a gun. There's a bunch of stuff on here that I keep on forgetting to buy. But luckily I think I can get grips in a day. Well, anyway. So we got this on. Everything else in here is all good to go. So what we're gonna do next is we are going to... All right, so now what we're gonna do is we are gonna throw our cover on. Super exciting. Gotta be very gentle, just so that we don't mess up our gasket. We got a bunch of things that we need to make sure are lined up here too. My goodness. What a pain in the butt. What we'll do is we'll throw a couple bolts in, make sure that our gasket stays nice and lined up. Because it's not staying lined up right here. Alright, let's try this again. Man, what a pain in the butt this is. Alright, that should be... Oh, our gasket fell out of the bottom. Alright, there we go. So let's start throwing some bolts in here. Very gently. I'll run these in. Perfect. Alright, let's get this water pump cover on and get our hose hook back up. Okay, so now we have the water pump cover. So just a couple bolts. We put a new gasket in here already, and we cleaned up the surface. So we are going to throw some bolts in here. Hopefully the gasket kind of stays on there. Lines up. All right, perfect. So the dowels are in there. We'll run this thing in tight. Perfect. And I think the long bolt goes here. Another bolt here. Another bolt here. And another bolt here. Alright. So we got that bolted down. We're going to grab our gasket for this guy. Gotta put our Kickstarter on next. And we need to kind of fart with this power valve stuff too. So we're at low RPM. So this must be our low RPM position. So we're gonna get our shaft on there. There we go. So then when this thing comes out, it'll pull this power valve open. And then we're gonna brake clean some of that crap up because it's just really ugly up here. Alright, so we got all that cleaned up. Gotta make sure we put this hose back on too. Some people should just not own dirt bikes. I tell you what. Because if you're gonna do trashy crap like that, then you should not own one. Alright, cool. Man, we have a lot of work on this thing. Alright, I gotta put this cover on. And then this rubber on. Unfortunately, our power valve box did end up melting a little bit. I've been searching on eBay for one, and it's kind of hard to find. So hopefully we'll end up finding one that we can replace this ugly thing. I think we're gonna have to take this arm back off. Yeah, so I'm not gonna keep on doing that. Alright, cool. So we got that back on. So we're gonna take this shaft off, push our power valve back in. We're gonna take this apart. This is the pain in the butt about power valve bike. But it's kinda hard to make fun of a power valve bike when it makes a ton of horsepower. Like this little 125. This little one Deuce nickel. It does make putting this nut on a little bit trickier. But it is all rubber, so it bends pretty easy. Alright, let's try this again. Alright, cool. So now we put our main cap back on. Oopsie. We gotta make sure we get all these seals and stuff lined up. All right, perfect. Oh, mostly perfect. All right, there we go. So, pretty ugly, but at least in place. Let's go get that Kickstarter and the bolt. All right, so here is our Kickstarter. Actually, before we do that, before we get this thing stuck on here again, let's throw some lube on this thing. And we'll throw some lube on the shaft itself too. All right. Oh, there's no centering piece in here anymore, so that kind of sucks. Oh, all right. All right. So we're gonna throw this cover on just to avoid contamination in there. We'll do the same thing with this cover. We'll clean it off real nice. All right, here's our gasket. All right, cool. So there we go. We're back in business. We have a bike that shifts, and then I'll start real nice because this thing has a ton of compression. I'm debating, and what I'm thinking is that tomorrow, oh man, I don't want to do it because I might run out of time, but I'm kind of thinking we're going to have to rebuild the suspension if we really want to do a good test on this thing. I don't know. Otherwise, it's just going to bottom really hard. At the very least, we'll get the forks rebuilt, but I really want to rebuild this shock too. All right, cool guys. Well, that's it for the first night. We got a cover on, got a water pump, took care of, hopefully, fingers crossed, all of our leaks. Do I still have that jug of water in here? Must have tossed that out or something. But yeah, so tomorrow, I think we're going to end up ripping the forks off and these tires off and get these tires replaced. At the very least, we'll get this front tire replaced and make sure that that thing works for Saturday. We'll yank the forks off, the front tire off. I'm hoping that we can probably yank this rear shock off too tomorrow. Get all these things rebuilt quick, get an air filter on this, slam this thing all back together, and be, fingers crossed, riding this thing Saturday afternoon. That's my goal. I really want to. It's Wednesday night, so no pressure. So, alright guys. That's going to be it for tonight. We'll check in again tomorrow. Hey guys, we're back in the garage for day 2, and we got all of this assembled last night. We're still missing a clutch spring, which we're gonna take out of that KX over there, because I couldn't find any in town, which I thought was kind of lame, but that's okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to replace this ugly thing here. This is for the stator. So we're gonna replace this ugly thing here. We're gonna kind of wrap up some of this stuff, put bolts on. We're still missing that guard, but we'll be able to run it. New one of these. We're gonna throw a new throttle cable on here because this one's all messed up here, and I don't want this thing to just run away like crazy. So we'll do that, and we are going to swap out this front tire as well with this Maxxis that we found. We're just doing everything, but not anything more, just to make this thing run so we can ride it this weekend. So we're gonna leave this tire on for now. We're gonna throw the old chain on. We're not gonna rebuild the shock or the forks, which I think will be okay on that. The rear shock, I mean, this is basically like a pogo stick. It's pretty bad. We will be rebuilding it and the forks and doing some other work. So we're gonna do the throttle cable. We're gonna throw some water in this thing to make sure it doesn't leak, and replace that one plug on the other side. And take the clutch spring out, put clutch springs in, and do this front tire. Stay tuned. Okay, so what we ended up doing was we took 2 springs out of the KX250, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna put them across from each other. So we have 2 of the stock springs that we had in here, and then we have 2 of the KX springs that we had in here. We're gonna tighten these down, and then we'll be good on that side of things. All right, and then just to make sure everything's working fine, that is gonna disengage pretty much perfectly. There's some room for improvement up here. Obviously, we're gonna end up replacing this clutch anyway, but for now, we'll be able to get it on the track and just kind of see how it's gonna be. Another thing, I know right off the bat, the suspension's gonna be trash, which really sucks. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to replace it all by then. Let me grab the other dowel from this case too. And then this side of things will be done. We'll be able to put oil in this thing. What I wanna do first is I wanna put water in this thing just to make sure we're not getting any water seeping into here. So ideally, these dowels would go in this cover. That would honestly be the easiest thing. Why is this so messed up looking? There we go. Jeez, we'll get it eventually. Sorry, it's my first time. So we'll get these on. I went with the long sleeve today because it's a little bit cooler outside, but then I forget how much heat my garage holds, especially when it's hot out during the day. So I'm a little on the toasty side. Little on the toasty side. All right, cool. We're gonna slap some water in this thing, and fingers crossed it doesn't leak. We're gonna replace that plug first. I'm not gonna forget it, I promise. All right, so we dumped some water in this thing, and it's appearing not to be leaking, so we should be good there. We're gonna leave water in here for a little bit because we have this drain bolt out on the bottom. So we're gonna leave that out for now. See if any water ends up coming out of here. I think we should be good though. I think that seal ended up working. So now we're gonna kind of just go through and we're gonna throw bolts on some of this stuff. And we're gonna take that front wheel off and we're gonna swap that out. We're gonna throw a new air filter in here because this one's trashed, and we have that in our bucket. So we'll include that in our getting it running price. And then we're gonna remount this rear brake reservoir because they riveted it and then used a 1/4 inch bolt, and then the cap melted on the exhaust. So pretty sweet, pretty cool stuff. I'm gonna put you guys on a time lapse, and you'll be able to see me do stuff for a little bit. So with this front wheel, it's really easy. It's a couple of 10 millimeters on both sides. So basically just take them off. Just like that. Go from right here, quick. Same thing on this side. This brake line might be in the way, so we'll grab this 8 millimeter. So 8 millimeters on this side for this brake bracket. Get this brake out of the way, and then we'll tighten this back up so we don't lose them. Oop. There we go. Make this a little bit nicer. There we go. This is just straight up missing the piece that goes on the end here. Man, this bike is kind of crappy. It's like the most random things are missing on it. But go pull that off. Pull that off. Pull that off. Luckily the brakes work and the engine runs, which are usually the things that don't work. Fork seals are trash too. Oh, what a shame. I bet you at one time this thing was a legit racer. And that's what I'd really like to turn it back into. Is a legit racer. Oh. Oh, we might lose some balance here. Brake pads are holding this thing on. Those brake pads are not in the best shape. We're probably gonna have to replace those. So we'll add that to the list. And that's fine because these forks are kind of leaking anyway. But yeah, so that's what it takes to take the front tire off. It's pretty easy. We're gonna swap this out with some new rubber quick. Stay tuned. So guys, in true dirt bike building fashion, you have a timeline, and of course the timeline kind of gets thrown out the window because we're gonna do our front tire, and of course I got the front tire on, go to put air in it, found out it leaked. What happened, and this is super annoying, the valve stem ended up falling out of the tube and getting lodged in the tire, and the valve stem, or the Schrader valve here, ended up putting a little hole in that tire. So when I went to go air it up, it started leaking out, and I knew right away. Took the tube out and everything out, and of course the Schrader valve was sitting in the bottom, so right where the hole was, unfortunately. So whatever, that went crappy. I was like, oh screw it, I'll throw the chain on. The chain's too long that the dude gave me, so that sucks because my chain braking tool is in my pickup truck. My tire spoons are in my pickup truck, so I used pry bars. Don't do that. And then I was like, all right, cool. So I'll end this video on like a W. I'll throw the air filter in, right? Nope, can't do that either because my air filter oil is also in my pickup truck at work. So at the very least, we were able to finish this stuff up. We got water in it. We'll see if anything leaks tomorrow. We could probably clean up the head pipe, but at this rate, I'm just kind of taking the L for tonight, and we'll visit this again tomorrow, because we can throw that head pipe on, or expansion chamber, we can throw the exhaust on. I got donuts that we can do that stuff tomorrow. Ah man, actually, maybe that's not the worst idea. But what I'm gonna do, once I'm done with dinner here quick, I'm gonna throw the head pipe on, and I'm gonna throw our silencer on, and at least get the exhaust side of things done. I might even drill this out quick and get this ugly rivet out of here. I don't know why you would do that, but God, some people, I swear to God. So, whatever. Not a complete L tonight, but pretty close. Boom. Got the tire mounted, and it doesn't even leak. So that was pretty sweet. Kyle gave me this mounting lube stuff, and then the little bit of baby powder on the tube. Works perfect. So it turns out when you have the right tools to do the job, it works. So we're gonna get this tire installed. We're gonna break that chain, air filter. We're gonna throw throttle and clutch cable on this thing right away. And we're gonna rip this thing a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't get too dark, but we'll at least be able to start it and stuff. It looks like our water levels are still gonna be, yep, so our water didn't go down at all, so we're looking pretty good there. On the water side of things, we got the exhaust mounted last night, so we're gonna throw some engine oil in here too, and we should be in pretty good shape. So I'm gonna keep on grinding away, and hopefully we'll get this thing running tonight. All right, so I got the front tire all mounted up. She's ready to go. Brakes work, surprisingly. And now we're working on the chain. All right, so I think we're gonna try and reuse this master link. I gotta take this all apart, so I'll keep you guys from the boring parts. Seriously, the ugliest chain in the world. It's red now, but we're gonna adjust this thing, so there'll be a stage 2 of the KX. First, we're gonna make it run. Second, we're gonna make it awesome. So I hate this as much as you guys, trust me. Ooh, am I stealing more parts off my KX? Maybe. I might steal that wheel for here too. Parts KX at this point. Shame. All right, anyway. I'm gonna grab that roller quick, and then we're gonna tighten up this chain, and then air, cables, and we're gonna rip this thing. All right guys, we're getting closer. We got our chain on. We got our chain adjusted now. So we might need to adjust it again just a little bit. It might be a little bit too tight. But chain on. Now we're gonna go to our air filter. So just for tomorrow, what we're gonna do, well, actually for Sunday, at this rate. For Sunday, what we're gonna do is we're gonna just lather this thing up. Yeah. It's cool, these Tusk air filters come with gloves, so that's pretty sweet. But yeah, so basically what we're gonna do is we're just gonna dump 2-stroke oil all over this thing. All right, sweet. So our oil filter is real nice and covered. We just got one little white spot right here. So throw there, perfect. And then what we'll do, just to make sure, we'll grab some grease. We'll just run a nice thin little bead around the mating surface so that we don't get any shit in there. Run this all the way around. But yeah, like I was saying, that uni stuff is really nice. All you do is spray it on, rub it around, and it works out like perfectly, which I absolutely love it. But I absolutely love it, and would pretty much buy it for the rest of my life. It's so easy. So we're gonna get this installed on the bike, and cables. That's what we got next. So stay tuned. All right, air filter's in. We're gonna work on the cables quick. So clutch cable. Honestly, the clutch cable's fine. Maybe we'll keep that one. But this throttle cable's trash. So we're not even going to bother using that. And then these bars, I kind of hate them. So we do have a spare of white bars over there. You've seen, well, actually, no. Those are like OOG. Those are for my XR650L. So those, I've had those for a long time. Those have always been just the spare bars. So we're going to throw those spare bars on here just for now because these bars are trash and they don't really even hold our master cylinder right. So we're gonna swap that out, swap out that cable, and then we're gonna fire this thing up. Oh, we're getting there, so close. So the throttle cable is pretty easy. Basically what you do is you take your throttle, you take the 2 bolts out, and in one of those bolts actually holds all the rotating piece together, and then the other bolt just holds the rest of the cover on. And then same thing as pretty much any other cable you've ever done. You just slide the cable out of this portion here, hold it up, slide it out of there. And I took the handlebars and everything off, obviously. But then you basically unscrew the slide. That's why I love these Keens so much. They're so easy to work on. So yeah, then you slide the shaft out of there, and I'll mount the camera to the bike so you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. Basically what you do is slide this up, and then there's also a plastic piece. I'll grab a pick. Slide this plastic piece up and out of the way. Come on, come on, come on. There you go. All right, cool. So you slide that out of the way, and then with this, you just push it down, and then you kind of fish it out just like that. And then you need to make sure you keep the, oop. Don't do that. The slide's like the most important part. Put that right there on the bench. And then make sure you keep the rest of this stuff. All this stuff is for the carburetor. Basically to like this point. We'll grab the new cable and we'll see what it all comes with. But yeah. So this is pretty much how you take the cable off. I'm gonna grab our new throttle cable and start installing it, and I'll show you guys if there's anything else. I'll show you that on the way. All right, so basically it's super easy. Pull this clip out and then you run your cable through there. So I'm gonna pull that clip out and we'll get this installed. All right, throttle cable installed. We got the cap back on and everything, and then we got this. So we're gonna install these kind of ugly handlebars, but they'll work for what we're using them for, and keep on grinding away at this thing. Stay tuned. Okay, so this was kind of crazy. The needle was actually cracked a little bit in here. This is a different needle I have from some of the other Keen carbs I've rebuilt, but I don't understand how this works, but this wasn't loose in here. It was kind of jammed in there, and when I went to go take this apart, it broke. All the clip positions, it broke at the bottom one. So swear to God, some of these cheap bikes that you buy are just trash. But anyway, so we cleaned this one out just a little bit. I got a new needle in here, and then hopefully our throttle should feel a lot better. So we're gonna slam this thing together, and God, we're gonna run this thing tonight. I promise. All right, so we're gonna run this thing tonight. I promise. I promise. Or we'll make like movie magic and say we did it tonight. But that's lying. All right, so our throttle was still a little bit sticky, but I cut the grip off, and that ended up being the problem. So we got a nice return, and those grips were ugly, so we're gonna replace them with these Motion Pro green ones, which look kind of sweet. So I think it'll kind of slowly make the bike look better, but I think what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to cut a little bit because this tube is a little bit messed up, or we'll slide it back a little more so it's not actually catching on this part. But yeah, we finally found that problem. All right, it's moment of truth time. Let's get this thing running. pogo stick. Frickin' straight pogo stick. These bars aren't really gonna work for me either. Oh, alright. Why does this thing feel so weird? It's like raked out. Why does this thing feel like this has a different rake than my KX? It might just be these bars. Wow, nutty. Alright, anyway. Alright, so let's see if we can get this thing to start. Fuel in the carb. Choke's on. Bike is in neutral. Wow, not great. Not great. Whew. All right. So there's a couple problems. It leaks gas really bad. I didn't actually put the springs back on the head pipe, so that's a problem. If you leave the gas on, it leaks all out. So we're gonna have to figure that out. Probably something to do with the float or that needle. It's got oil. It starts good. It runs pretty good too. I'm pretty surprised. So, I don't know, a little bit more work. We'll put those springs on. We'll actually hook up the shifter this time because I was going down there. So I go for a rip just down the alley quick. And I go to shift up and it strips all the gears or all the splines out of the shifter because it wasn't tight. So I'm gonna throw a bolt in there. I'm gonna try and figure out this fuel leak problem. And then it doesn't really idle super great, but we'll get to that when we do some more testing and tuning. But I don't know. For fairly cheap, I mean, we got a brand new tire, air filter, everything else is pretty solid. So overall, I'm super happy about this. All right, so I think I got it. I currently have the fuel on and I tightened down the shifter. So now we're gonna take it for another little rip and try it out again. Fingers crossed it works. All right, so you guys saw last night, this thing ran like dog crap. So we're gonna rip the carb apart. Fingers crossed there's some gunky crap in there that's causing this thing not to run worth crap. It'll rev, but it won't make any power. And I mean, looking back here, there's some pretty crazy residue already from me not really riding it a whole lot. So rip the carb apart and fingers crossed there's something in there. If not, then I guess we'll do a compression test and just make sure we have that. Hell, we might even do a compression test right now. Spark plug's easy enough to get to. We'll see what the spark plug looks like and stuff too. So stay tuned. So we have 140 PSI of compression. So top end's actually in super good shape. Let's rebuild that carb and hopefully there's something wrong with it. Okay, so I ripped the carb apart and we have a pilot jet. Ooh, this one. This one. 40. Oh, now you can see through it. So whatever was in there must have fallen out. But we had a pilot jet that was stuck. Our bowl looks like that. And we have a 172 in there, which is huge. Stock size is a 160 and a 40 pilot. I have a 160 in this Banshee kit from a long time ago. I guess not that long ago when I put the different carb on the Banshee. But yeah, so I have a 160. So I think we might throw the 160 in. I know this thing does have an FMF fatty and power core, so it might actually like that. But I'm thinking right now it's way over fueled. So we'll go back to this stock 160. And we'll clean out this pilot jet too. I do have a cleaner. I'm going to run through all this stuff and then I'll clean out the bowl. Actually, before I put this back in, we'll clean out the carb, all the air passages and stuff. And we'll start fresh with a fairly clean carb. This gasket's in pretty decent shape, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, we'll take everything apart, blow air through it, and clean it up the best we can. So, as you guys can see, of course, my weekend starts Saturday today, and it starts raining. So that really sucks. Hopefully the track will be dry for tomorrow, or at least dry enough. Anyway, back to the carb. We rebuilt the carb. I put a 160 and a 40 in it. Everything else is pretty much the same except for that needle that we broke. I just grabbed the needle. I can't really tell profile very well. It looked fairly close, but I mean it might be off a little bit. I believe it was another stock. I think it was the stock one from my KX125 that came in the rebuild kit. So I threw that in here. Our throttle is finally nice and snappy again, so that's awesome. We got our grips on, we got these handlebars on, and I got fuel in this thing now. So we have fuel going to it. Luckily, nothing's leaking right now. We're gonna try firing this thing up, and fingers crossed it actually runs good and it pulls out. So stay tuned for that. All right, so let's see how it does. So, of course, it starts raining even more, but man, okay, it runs like really good now. Revving it out, it clears out nice. But I'm sure we're probably still maybe a little bit, well, I don't know. We got stock jets, we might be a little bit on the lean side, but it revs out, pretty happy. Pulled the front tire, I mean, it's definitely not a 250, but it gets through it. Man, this thing's gonna rip tomorrow. I'm stoked. I'll have some footage for you guys, hopefully, of us riding this thing tomorrow. Wish I could have fixed the pogo stick action. It's pretty trash. Shocks are pretty much garbage, but the pogo stick back here, that's gonna be really bad on the jumps. But thanks for watching, and let's test this thing on the next episode of Olson's Garage.